Back in Indy with Tom Pelissero from NFL Network. And Tom, we heard yesterday, we heard from Pete Carroll, we heard from John Spytek. First combine for them in charge of the silver and black. Just kind of what's your general take been around the league on the reception of those guys coming in and doing their thing?
I think Pete Carroll's a known commodity. I think that's where you start. He's won a ton of games in this league. His entire time in Seattle, I think he had a grand total of 2 games where the Seahawks were eliminated from playoff contention. So you know that means year in and year out, you're there at the end. He won a Super Bowl. He went to the playoffs a bunch of times. And now he's taken over another organization that, probably just from an overall talent standpoint and where they are, it's still a similar spot to what Seattle was back in 2009. So there's a lot of work to do on the roster. That's where John Spytek comes in. Obviously, he's got a long track record within the league, including recently with Tampa, which has been one of the most consistent programs out there. And I think that everybody's waiting to see, how do the Raiders approach this thing? I mean, you've got a couple of building block pieces. Obviously, Brock Bowers is a huge one. Max Crosby as well. There's going to be some questions in terms of the long-term future. Spytek said yesterday, I envision him being a Raider for a long time, but the contract's going to need to be addressed at some point here. And you got to be weighing all these different things out. You need a quarterback. You need talent at virtually every other position on the roster. What's the best way to utilize the resources that you have, beginning with potential trades and beginning with, your high draft pick this year?
Speaking of those resources a little bit, I think one thing that really stood out to us as we were listening to both John and Pete yesterday was the Tom Brady effect to all of this, and Tom being a sounding board for a lot of these decisions that'll be coming in the next couple of months. Like, how valuable is it to have a guy like Tom, who's not only part of the ownership group now, but has won and has done it at the highest level and is the GOAT in so many ways?
Well, I'll tell you, Tom Brady makes people consider things that they otherwise wouldn't consider. I mean, I go back, obviously, Ben Johnson ends up going to the Bears. Ben Johnson was never going to consider the Raiders but for Tom Brady making a push, and he really gave it hard thought. I mean, Tom is just such a unique person, 7-time Super Bowl winner, arguably the greatest of all time, a future Hall of Famer. To have him in the building, figuratively and literally,
yeah.
I know that he spends a lot of time in Florida. He's got the Fox gigs and he's traveling around, but just having him be a part of the program, it just lends a different type of a credibility. And I think that's probably the buzzword that I'll continue to use moving forward here, which is Tom Brady as well as Pete Carroll. You've got the instant credibility of two guys who we know they've been a part of winning programs. They know how to build this thing. Tom's in a different role now. I mean, he's involved in every single aspect of it. Go back to what Mark Davis said when the minority ownership was approved, saying that Tom, can maybe help us find that quarterback and train him too. I mean, there's no other minority owner on earth like that. And so, Tom being a part of this thing is definitely a benefit to the Raiders. What's that going to mean in the big scope of things? Not just the recruiting of the head coach or recruiting of a few players or whatever it might be. It's what about the overall culture? Where does he spend his time? How does the overall interaction go? I know this. Him and John Spytek obviously have a long relationship going back to Michigan. Pete competed against Tom, including in a Super Bowl that Pete would probably prefer to forget. And those are important relationships as they try to get this thing going in a really tough division where you're going to need that credibility to convince players, hey, come here and be a part of something, even if it might take us a little bit to build it.
Tom, before we let you go, I'm just curious this time of year, especially this week in Indy, what's like the tastiest morsel, the tastiest rumor, something that is intriguing you as we percolate through the NFL media cycle here?
I mean, listen, there's a ton of quarterback movement that's going to happen. If you look at it on paper, there's 9 or 10 teams that clearly need a starting quarterback. There's probably a half dozen more teams that need either a top backup or somebody to compete to start. That's half the league is looking for a quarterback. The Raiders are certainly high on that list. It starts here with, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Does somebody else pop up into maybe the QB2 role? Does Quinn Ewers make a push? Does Jackson Dart make a push? In other words, do one of these quarterbacks that we're not talking about being a high first-round pick maybe make their case through the process here, and a team like the Raiders might be in that mix? But it's also the reality that realistically from this draft, and I haven't done my full deep dive into the quarterbacks yet, but just my casual conversations with people, there's not, 5 different quarterbacks. It's not like last year we had 6 quarterbacks, so it's like all these guys could start, sooner than later. This is much more, you might get 1 or 2. Well, where are all these other quarterbacks coming from? Sam Darnold might get franchise tagged. We'll see how that plays out in the next 6 days. You've got Justin Fields. You've got Russell Wilson. Then you got a bunch of question marks, all of which leads me to the potential trades. Obviously, the Raiders have been linked to Matthew Stafford. There's certainly an interest level there, but they're going to examine all the various options that are available out out there. So I would say, in terms of just like the tastiest rumor, I would just say the fact that we're talking about somebody like Matthew Stafford, who is 37 years old, but he was part of a division winner last year. He's still performing at a high level. The Rams, based on all their public comments, still want him to come back, but there's a discrepancy over money. That's a guy that doesn't often become available under these circumstances, and it might be the first big domino to fall in this whole thing.
Yeah, and it's an exciting time of the year. Tom Pelissero, appreciate you. We'll be watching and listening. I promise you that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, man.
What's up, Raiders Nation? Brace yourselves, because a bombshell just dropped in Las Vegas. Our Las Vegas Raiders are chasing a veteran quarterback with a $160 million pedigree to take charge of our offense. And it's not just any name. This is a heavy hitter who's hoisted big trophies in the NFL. I know you're dying to find out who it is, and I promise I'll spill it all. But buckle up, because this news is hotter than the Nevada desert. Could this be the guy to pull the Raiders out of the gutter and back to glory? Stick with me, Nation, because this is about to blow your mind. Hey there, Raiders Nation. I'm Fabio, the Raiders fanatic, the guy who bleeds black and silver and lives to bring you the hottest Las Vegas Raiders news straight to your soul. Today, we're diving into something that'll make us dream big. The Raiders are pulling strings to land a QB who could put us back in the playoff hunt for 2025. Before we jump into this roller coaster of emotions, drop that sweet, like, if you believe the Raiders' shield deserves to shine again. We're in this together, because this is a spot for diehard fans who never give up, and I know you're as pumped as I am to see what's cooking behind the scenes. Picture this, Nation. A quarterback who's won a Super Bowl, slung over 3,700 yards last season, rocking the black and silver, and commanding a packed Allegiant Stadium. This guy's closer to Las Vegas than you might think, and the Raiders are throwing everything at it to make it happen. Is it real, or just another wild offseason rumor? I'm going to walk you through the story step by step with all the juicy details I've dug up, because this news could reignite our hope. So hold on tight, Raiders Nation, because this is heating up fast, and I won't let you miss a single second of this drama. 2024 was a punch to the gut for us, Nation. We finished a 4-13 record, a campaign that left every Raiders fan with a heavy heart and a hoarse voice from screaming to will this team forward. Our offense was a ghost of what we've been, ranking 29th in the league and scoring a pain we don't deserve. At quarterback, it was a carousel that went nowhere. Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, and Desmond Ridder took turns, but the stats tell the tale. 64.5% completion rate, 3,763 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 16 picks. That's not enough for a franchise with a Raiders legacy. It's time to flip the script. Don't you agree? After such a weak season, heads rolled in Las Vegas, and rightly so. Antonio Pierce, our former head coach, and GM Tom Telesco got the axe after just 1 year of tough call. But it shows the Raiders want real results. Raiders Nation deserves more than empty promises, and the front office heard our roar. But check out who stepped in to take charge. Pete Carroll, a legendary coach who's won a Super Bowl with the Seahawks and knows how to turn teams into winners. He's our new head honcho, and he's made it clear he wants to compete now, not 5 years down the road. What do you think of Pete steering our ship? Hit the comments. With Pete Carroll at the helm, one thing's obvious. Our offense needs a legit quarterback, a leader who can step in and get the Raiders back on track. We can't keep banking on unproven talent or QBs who don't deliver. We need someone who turns yards into points and losses into wins. This team has history, grit, and the best fans in the world, but we're missing that guy who makes a difference on the field. Pete knows it, the front office knows it, and I know you, Raiders Nation, feel that need in your bones. Could the Raiders' bold plan fix this? Let's find out. Here it is, Raiders Nation. The name shaking up Las Vegas is Matthew Stafford. That's right, the quarterback who led the Rams to the Super Bowl in 2022, a top-tier veteran who's still playing at an elite level and could be the missing piece to ignite our offense in 2025. According to Vincent Bonsignori from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, the Raiders have their sights on him. And here's the kicker. Tom Brady, our minority owner, is already working the phones to bring Stafford here. Picture a Super Bowl champ leading the Raiders at Allegiant Stadium. Are you feeling the ground shake like I am? Let me break down why Stafford's a big deal. Last season, he threw for 3,762 yards, 20 touchdowns, and just 8 picks, numbers that scream he's still got plenty in the tank. At 37, he's one of the smartest, most clutch QBs in the NFL, with an arm that makes defenses sweat. The number 1 overall pick in the 2009 draft, Stafford carried the Lions on his back for years before heading to the Rams and winning a Super Bowl. He knows how to win in tough spots, and bringing that experience to Las Vegas could be the boost we need to strike fear into the AFC West again. But how could this even happen, Fabio? Hold up, I've got you. The Rams gave Stafford permission to explore trade options because his contract guaranteeing $27 million in 2025 is up for negotiation. Word on the street is he's eyeing something bigger, maybe $50 million a year, and the Rams might not be willing to pony up. So, the door's cracked open for a move, but it won't be a cakewalk. Will LA let their star QB walk, or will they fight to keep him in their lineup? The game's on behind the scenes, nation, and the Raiders need to move fast and smart to come out on top. And who's spearheading this wild mission? Our very own Tom Brady, the greatest QB in NFL history, and now a minority owner of the Raiders. Rumors say he's already reached out to Stafford's camp, maybe even over a secret meetup in Montana with some skiing and serious talks. Brady wants the Raiders winning, and he knows Stafford could be the key. Imagine the weight of that GOAT pulling strings to bring a championship QB to Las Vegas. It's the kind of move that gets us dreaming big. Do you think Brady can pull this off? Now check out what we got in our arsenal to make this happen. Nearly $100 million in cap space for 2025, one of the biggest piggy banks in the league. That's enough to pay Stafford and still grab some weapons to surround him, receivers, O-line, whatever it takes. Plus, we got the number 6 overall pick in the draft, a prime spot to trade or snag a young stud. Pete Carroll said he wants to win now, and with these resources, the Raiders can build a roster that competes. What would you do with that cash and pick, nation? Splash it all on Stafford or save it for the future? But it's not all sunshine, nation. To land Stafford, the Raiders will have a haggle hard with the Rams, who might demand a steep price, maybe even our number 6 pick. And Stafford knows his worth, so his contract will need to be hefty to lure him over. On top of that, the Giants, Browns, and Steelers are sniffing around too for the latest offseason buzz. The competition's fierce, and the Raiders will need guts to win this tug of war. Can we seal the deal, or will someone snatch Stafford out from under us? Now imagine if this works out, Raiders Nation. Matthew Stafford rolls into Las Vegas, hitting receivers with pinpoint passes, leading our offense against the Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos in the AFC West. With Pete Carroll calling the shots and Tom Brady in the background, the Raiders could climb out of the basement and back into contender status. It's the kind of move that reignites our fire, fills Allegiant Stadium with black and silver, and makes the whole league respect our shield again. I see Stafford tossing a touchdown in the end zone while we scream ourselves hoarse. Can you feel that energy with me? Now I want to hear from you, Raiders Nation. Is Matthew Stafford the right guy to lead us in 2025? At 37, does he still have the juice to get us to the playoffs? Or should we roll the dice on a young QB in the draft, like a Shadur Sanders or Jake Haener to build for future? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because we hash it out like family here. I'm dying to know what you think of Stafford as a quick fix, or time to look long-term. Let's make this video blow up with Raiders Nation's hot takes. That's it, Raiders Nation. The Las Vegas Raiders news is on fire, and I'll be back soon with more sizzling updates straight from the front lines to keep you in the thick of it. If this got you hyped, smash that like, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and share with the Black and Silver crew. We're stronger together. Let's keep dreaming big and cheering for this team that runs in our blood. Until next time, nation, and never forget our motto, just win, baby. Catch you in the next video, because the Raiders never stop, and neither do we.